Well, hello there, welcome to the second episode of Things I Wore Decided by a 10-sided chunk of plastic. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, I made a longer explanation video here, that's incidentally also episode 1, but the quick and dirty is that every day I roll a d10, every day I roll a d10, every day I roll a d10, every day I roll a d10 to determine how fancy I dressed during the pandemonium, and I've already used up all of my d10s. Every day I roll a d10 to determine how fancy I dressed during the fucking pandemonium. This was supposed to be a 9. And then I started spring cleaning. No more jewelry, no more up fanciness, no. I go sleep now. This is basically a fun little game I play with myself to explore my wardrobe, and that keeps me from wearing the same 3 things over and over until I'm devastated because they're completely worn out, unmendable, and I don't know what to cover my body with. If you want to join me, or just kind of understand what I'm doing here, the rules I use for myself, which of course aren't set in stone but more like guidelines, are these. I roll a d10. 1 equals no effort at all. Just throw on what's there, or just stay in your pajamas if you can. And 9 is literally dressed to the 9s. What about 10, you ask? 10 is weird fantasy critter stuff so that my latex ears and prosthetic teeth and contacts get some fresh air once in a while. Sometimes you have to consider what's going on that day. A work 9 might be different from a go out with friends 9, in those times when you can actually go out with friends. Also, dressing above the rolled number is always an option. Dressing down not so much because it is about the challenge, but dressing up is encouraged. I should probably add, don't beat yourself up about not doing it if you don't have the spoons that day to that list. I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. May was a good month for this. It wasn't too warm yet, I rolled a bunch of interesting stuff, and I got a couple of real favorite outfits out of it. And a few characters that you can see later in the video. June and now July, on the other hand, not so much. I've horribly neglected rolling for style due to several reasons, one of them being having visitors. I'm just not thinking of it. I think I haven't done anything in about 3 weeks, but that, as I said, is okay. It's a bit sad because dressing nicely is a form of self-care, but sometimes we just don't have the energy. I don't deal well with heat at fucking all, and when I try to remember what I wore in June, I feel like there were a couple of days when I would just wear some fluttery something over my undies and then call it a day when I didn't have to leave the house. And I can't really show that on the internet, can I? Well, at least on most platforms, and if I'm already not in the mood to get dressed because I don't like existing in physical form in the first place, I don't think that would be a good day to start an OnlyFans account. But I digress. Aside from the heat and the unpleasantness that is existing in it, my depression also gets worse in summer, and how am I to get dressed when I can barely make it out of bed? Of course, ideally I would do it anyway, and there have been instances where it was a welcome kick in the rear to see that I should dress a 7 or 8. It tends to get me out of my stupor, carefully picking something to visually build myself on that day, and thinking about whether, and if yes, how to accessorize. Speaking of accessories, accessorizing is still a thing I struggle with. I like accessories, don't get me wrong, I just like little details and Easter eggs and things to discover about a design, and by that also a person's visual quote-unquote character design. I'm just far better doing it to other people, fictional or not, than to myself. In fact, though, rolling my dice has led to me rediscovering a few items that I had completely forgotten about and actually really like. Now you might say, but if you forgot about them, you could just throw them out, right? Because they aren't that important, but that's not how it works for me. Sorry, Marie Kondo. And why? Mainly 2 reasons. A, I don't do object permanence. I regularly forget the existence of things that I don't see all the time, and sometimes even those. And B, I'm much more inclined to throw out things that keep nagging me because I see them all the time, but I don't feel any attraction to them. When I look at my wardrobe, especially in the light of this little style experiment here, I see a few things that don't really get anywhere, and that should maybe vacate the premises of my life altogether. Some of that might just be owed to the season, so I'll have to wait and see for autumn to come around, but there are things I actually look forward to wearing and coordinating when it gets colder. And there are others that are just some sort of meh. But we'll burn that bridge when we come to it. Am I just rambling here? Maybe, but let's circle back to the days where I don't feel like dressing at all and the mental health benefits of doing it anyway. I already said that dressing nicely is self-care. I feel like sometimes we are led to believe that the opposite is true, that letting loose and not dressing up and not even going for a bra is the better and healthier of the two, but I think the best option, as so often, lies somewhere in between. What a surprise! Dressing to impress people that are not yourself is usually not a great idea. It wasn't when you were a teenager, and it isn't now either. Sure, maybe you should not wear sweatpants to a job interview at the bank, except if it's via video call, because then nobody can tell. But instead of dressing differently, and probably more stiffly, just because that's what one does, rather look at it as dressing to show the respect you have for someone. And if you don't feel like you have the respect for the people you work with, or for whatever context, maybe it's just not the context you should be in. I'm aware that you can't always choose, but if you can, if you see a chance for change, this might be a hint that you should maybe look for somewhere else to be. And this doesn't only apply to professional settings either, but to your private life as well. If you feel kinda sorta pressured to dress a certain way to be accepted with the people you hang out with, maybe that's not where you're supposed to be. So if you dress stiffly or uncomfortably or according to societal norms, what part of society that might mean in this case, do it because you want to. Because you respect the people around you and yourself. And if you can manage comfortable and respectable, or rather respectful at the same time, you basically win the game, especially if you like what you see in the mirror as well. But isn't taking your own style and likes into account another sign of self-respect? And now that I think about it, isn't it also a sign of respect towards the people you interact with? It's a way of saying, I respect you enough to show you my actual self, not some mask or costume I wear to blend in with something that is considered the norm or whatever applies here. And what's more, it's a signal of trust, as in, I trust you not to hold my looks and tastes against me, not to judge that book by the cover and to see me for who I am. I mean, sure, maybe hold back the fishnets and neon-splotched corset for that bank interview, but I trust you to be creative enough to find a way to incorporate something into a professional get-up to express who you are besides the suit and tie. Speaking of which, I'm all here for bringing back the novelty ties of the 80s and 90s. They might have been a bit tacky, but they did have personality. Now, how does this factor with the mental health thing? I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the saying, dress for the job you want, not for the job you have, mostly in combination with some quip about how your boss doesn't like you showing up in superhero spandex, but there is a kernel of truth in there. Don't dress for the mental state you're in, dress for the mental state you want to be in. Dress for the feeling you want. If that is staying in your pajamas or in sweatpants, that's fine, but as someone who's been living with depression since adolescence, I know that is rarely the state of dress and mind that I actually want to be in. If I stay in pajamas, I could at least throw a kimono or a bedgown over it and feel glamorous. More on the quest for nicely wear on another day. But if I want to slump around in sweatpants, how much difference in comfort do nice leggings make, and how much difference in feeling good about myself? It's a bit like with chores. When I'm in a really bad mental state, depression-wise, just looking at the wall or opening and closing Pinterest every 30 seconds in the hope of an anodyne post or picture, I often tell myself that I might as well do the chores that I don't want to do in the first place. But I'm unhappy anyway, so I might as well be unhappy while I do the dishes. I'm not saying that this kind of mindless, non-creative productivity is a perfect solution for everything, but if I can't cope or self-care anyway in that moment, this is a way to pay it forward to tomorrow's me, who might be in a better state and be very thankful, or might be in the same state and then has, dishes. In fact, one of the worst depressive states I've been in during the last 5 years was the time when I got most shit done, boring things I had to do wise. In the same spirit, I might as well dress nice. So I switched out the bolero type thing for this shirt, and I can actually just pull it through the belt loops of my pants. And contrary to the bolero, it doesn't make me unhappy. I can be unwell in a nice outfit just as well as I can in the crumpled throw of a thing I picked from the floor. Heck, I can even go the extra mile and go full-on romantic poet, gothic novel, tragic heroine, neo-romantic artist, and suffer in exquisite style. Clothing is self-care. Clothing is self-respect. It doesn't always have to work out, but at least thinking about making that effort is a good thing to do and a great first step. And I think I've rambled enough for today, and that is a good thing to close on. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, consider liking, subscribing and sharing it, for that is how we grow the gang, and maybe, join me in rolling for style. And I wish you all a wonderful time until we meet again. Please take care of yourself.